Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Hello, hello, Joe. How are you, man? How are you? Beside hungry.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. Mellow today, but all good, all good. Doing audio, so I don't mean to be speaking loudly, but you got to put some emphasis into when you do audio, otherwise it just records very flat. So
Mm-hmm.
you gotta use the voice. I'm
You
in that mode. Say again.
you recording a new class, a new
Yeah,
program?
yeah, a new program, right, right, exactly. Yeah, one on transitioning, death counseling, grief counseling, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah, I've done a lot of that for people, and just shifting perspective on it. That's all really, and just breaking out of those bubbles of should and what you typically think you need to be doing, should be doing, thinking about it differently. It's kind of a big deal. It's a big deal. I've helped a lot of people with that. Very simple thing, but or at least simple for me. I feel, but it's a big deal, because not everybody automatically thinks that they can think differently about death, and of course we can. So, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. No, I like it. So, very cool indeed. Very cool. Very cool stuff. Just small things, simple, simple. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is. It seems like a small thing, but I mean, if you do know somebody, then they are struggling. We don't always know what to do and what to say to them, really. Um, because it's not just a matter of being sensitive and kind and considerate, because that just kind of keeps them in the bubble. So we have to come at it and shift them and present them with other options and other ways of looking at it. And it's delicate, it's very fine, it's very delicate, and good opportunity to practice cavalry diplomacy, but also just that ability to share appropriately and to share and listen at the same time. So it kind of takes all of the skills that we're talking about, like especially when we're going to do the hearing and the helping with Erica later. We know those types of skills, they really come into it in a big time, because you have to kind of make space, let it come in, and then share. Now it's more difficult doing it in the programs, actually very difficult. At least has been, because when you do it live with somebody, you're interacting, even in type chat, you have that feedback, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
adapt as appropriate. But without the feedback, you don't know where they are. Am I pushing too fast? Am I being too hard? Am I pressing too much? So yeah, it's difficult. Very tricky stuff. Well, anyway, we hope so.
Yeah, I can see
But
that.
still,
How they're interpreting.
yeah. But if somebody's coming to do a program or a course, and they are struggling with grief, then at least they're already in a mindset where they believe something can be done. So they're a little open already. So
Mm-hmm.
at least I hoping that would be fine. And when they do see this, it's just a few little things. I've seen this when I've dealt with people. Just a comment here. I thought, oh wow, wow, I never really thought of it that way. Oh, and suddenly it all changes, and then it's a whole different ballgame. It's very cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool to see.
Yeah.
All right, where are we, Joe? Where are we? Where are we?
Oh, let's see.
I'm
Where are?
assuming Erica Jayne is there, busy. I see her in the background there, but
Yeah,
oh,
she's multitasking today.
brilliant. I love multitasking. I absolutely love multitasking. Hello, Erica. Hello, hello. I trick myself, like when I do stuff like this. I have music on, I have the TV on, or I'm listening to a story or an audio book. But that's my primary activity in my mind, not doing whatever the thing is that I might be doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to a story. Oh, I also happen to be just putting receipt totals onto a spreadsheet for somebody for their taxes, or whatever the hell thing I'm be doing. And so I don't mind doing it, because in my mind I'm listening to the story or watching TV or listening to music. So I don't care. It doesn't matter. This is additional. And then I get happy because, well, I'm not wasting my time. I'm multitasking. Oh, I love
Mm-hmm.
multitasking. So it's a very nifty way to really leverage ourselves to be productive. It's very cool. Very cool.
It is if you know what you're supposed to be focusing on and
Exactly. Exactly. If you have that shift,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah.
focus on everything at the same.
No, no. But again, too, like I mean, when I'm writing or doing a program, even if I'm watching TV, I don't need to hear every word on the TV,
Mhm.
because typically in most things you can kind of let it go and you can pick it up later on. So as I'm going, when I get immersed, then I'm in what I'm doing and I don't even hear the TV or the music. but there's always dead moments where you're doing a bit of editing or you've got to turn the page or whatever. Okay. And then my attention goes there. It only needs a second or two. So it's always there for me. And so when you have that, ability to immerse and be in it and then come out, and so it's an energy management thing too. And then that works really well. At least for me, I found it's really, really awesome. So it makes me very, very productive. I like it.
I've seen in the last few years that like when we're interviewing people for positions and they have that generic, I'm a great multitasker kind of,
Yeah.
that used to mean a lot.
Yeah.
Our brains are, you can
Yeah.
focus on one thing, you can switch back and forth, but you can only do one.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, does that just mean that you are generally sort of, mediocre in everything you do?
That's the concern.
Yeah. So I don't actually multitask. I like to think of myself as multitasking. But what I do is manage my time really, really well. I use the dead time. So in the dead time where I can't be actually doing my task because, okay, like I said, I'm turning the page or I'm formatting, I'm waiting for the thing to update, or I'm waiting for a page to load. That's dead time. I cannot be doing something, in the task. In that time, I pay attention to the TV. So I'm being hyper productive by managing my time, linearly, most appropriately. And also it keeps me motivated. So I know this, and that really adds to my productivity. But I'm not truly multitasking. Sometimes maybe. All right. So like now, when we do this, I like to know that while I'm here, something is working. That, like I'm uploading to YouTube. You see what I mean? So that's something that is kind of a true multitasking. Instead of me waiting until the end, I rather have it do while I'm doing stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, when you become conscious of time management, it can enhance our productivity ridiculously.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where people at work struggle, especially people coming out of college.
Yeah.
Struggle. They don't know how to do that.
Yes.
Focus
And
on
also no. Yeah.
focus on that. They try to focus on
Exactly.
all at once and look at how much
Exactly.
you're doing. Well, you're
Exactly.
one and do it really, really good, and then move on to the next.
Exactly.
And fill in your dead time with the stuff that distracts you and makes recharges you, not with this other task that you're going to do half-assed.
Exactly. And do stuff that gives you joy and pleasure and motivates you. Because in my mind, yes, 90% of my time is taken up by whatever my task is. It's a fraction that goes to the TV or the audiobook or whatever. But in my mind, I'm watching TV. So, and that works for me. So also part of this efficiency management and time management. Well, first it's a time awareness and understanding, the preciousness of time. A few seconds can mean a lot, but also what motivates you. Like, I mean, I've written millions of words in chat with people. I mean, a whole book series, never mind just books, because while they were busy working and okay, in between their working in their dead time, they were chatting to me. So I feel I'm being helpful to them. And this motivates me to write. Otherwise, it's like, writing's a pain in the butt. So it helped me to write it to somebody because they're listening and I'm telling them a story and they're happy listening to it. Now I feel like I'm doing something productive. Otherwise, for me, I'm doing it for my own self. It's not so motivating. So being aware of what motivates us to do things, this is very useful for being productive. Very, very useful, magically useful. And, from a management point of view, it is useful to know what motivates people so that they are doing things for the particular reasons that motivate them. And it's small tweaks sometimes, but it's very useful to know and be aware of. Very, very useful.
Yeah.
Very, very useful. I like it. I like it. I love this stuff because, it's all part of what we're doing. This is the application of it. Time management, energy management, resource management, self-leverage, self-awareness. It's very, very powerful. And when it comes to productivity, boy, it's a very hot topic for me. I love it. It's very powerful. Yeah. I mean, I'm ridiculously productive, and that's just because I understand how to leverage myself. So I manipulate myself into being productive. It's like, great, So. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And shifting perspective, especially perspective shifting. Am I doing something? Okay, like for instance, editing can be a real pain in the butt. It's very slow, it's very deliberate, it's very time consuming, it's very repetitive. But when you think of it in the context, I like neatness, or I like artistry, I like balance, I like getting things just right. When I think of that's what I'm doing, oh, now I love it. It's just a simple tweak sometimes. There's many ways we can look at things. The truth can be told in many different ways. So the same activity can be regarded in a multiple one, of different ways. We just have to find that way that grabs us, that resonates with us. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's very cool. Very cool. Motivation and productivity go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
I
Powerful
heard you
stuff.
asking Erica yesterday about the colonial pipeline.
Oh yeah. I was wondering how that affected you guys.
Um, we've had the same. We've actually had the same thing happen to us before. It was about 18 months.
Wow.
We were able to recover pretty quickly though, and they got into one facility. They didn't get into like an entire pipeline for us.
Wow. Did you have to pay them the ransomware?
No.
Oh, they paid $5 million. I saw.
They paid $5 million, which was actually pretty low. Usually they ask for tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And they paid the $5 million and they got the decryption software to run. But I was reading another report that said it actually ran so slowly they had to continue like recovering on their own. They weren't able to. $5 million was a complete waste.
and of course too, it's a huge ad for other freaking ransomware people to do the same.
Yes. Yeah, that's the worst part is they just keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what sort of is like, dang it, did you have to publish that you paid this? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I do feel, okay, I like freedom of the press, but sometimes I feel, hey, keep your freedom, but also be a bit responsible, Mm-hmm. You don't have to publish this. That doesn't really matter,
Yeah. So for us right now, it's stirring a lot of conversation, and I'm sure our board of directors is now asking questions: how secure are we from this, and how vulnerable are we? Because we have a huge pipeline that runs pretty close to the same path as the colonial pipeline that was.
Wow. Interesting.
It feeds government facilities too. I mean, it feeds. They don't tell us, but you can see we have big drop-offs in like North Carolina, and there's like military installations there.
Oh
wow. There'll be something I think that we have to implement.
Does the shutdown of Colonial's pipeline benefit Williams?
Not really, because they transport gasoline for your vehicles.
Yeah.
And we transport natural gas for your house.
Right. Okay. Oh, it's not the same thing.
Yeah. I think it might have just caused a general, kind of general increase in the futures price just because people got scared.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming this is something that is part of the security, or at least your system, that you have redundant systems in place. So should one get hacked, you can just shut it down and switch over to a secondary redundant system completely.
It depends.
I know that's a huge deal, but still, is it a possibility?
Where they get in. So the really good hackers will get through your main defense, right? Your firewall or your intrusion detection system. Mm-hmm. They'll kind of quietly get past that and then actually assemble their code inside of your environment. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to pass the code all the way through the firewall, they'll assemble it inside your environment and then wait a while, and then they'll execute it once it's already on the side.
Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, from a strategic point of view,
that's really hard to catch.
Yeah.
But you can't. Hopefully, you can have all the right precautions in place.
Yeah, but I mean, would it be? I imagine it would be very expensive, but to have a complete redundant, separate physical system that's entirely separate, absolute different network, different computers, different electricity, everything completely separate. I mean, it would be you'd have to duplicate your whole IT security team pretty much, but still,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really the only way you can do it, is to have a completely 100% isolated. It never touches the outside world in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That's the only way to be secure. If you're attached to the internet in any way,
Yeah.
you need to admit that they're going to get in someday, and
Yeah.
you need to have.
Yeah, and especially if it's a separate team with separate security code, so that once the hacker gets to the one, they can't use what they learned from the one and apply it to the other. Because it's all different. It's all different logic, different coding, different everything. One would hope. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the way it is, but that would be more secure, right? You've got to
if
find.
you could do it. Yeah, I'm just thinking out. I like to think from, because you always read about the stuff, so I like to speculate just to see, because this is a big deal. Yeah, we see this that's been put in, but at some point, some hacker may not do this for ransomware. They may do it for malicious reasons. Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, there's Russian government, Iranian government funded.
Exactly.
Do this
just terrorists. They get lucky.
The new terror.
I actually literally know of somebody. They were just a group and a couple of hackers, and they were new and they didn't really know what was going on, and they were looking to hack a government site, and they were literally just running their fingers over the keyboard, and complete luck, one in a whatever chance it is luck, they got it to a major government site. They're like, what, seriously? It's like, I'm in, and they thought they were joking, but they actually were. So weird shit happens.
Yeah, we've all seen this movie before. We all saw War Games.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. It was happening. But I mean, I know for real this happened to somebody. It's just quite amazing. And then the person was very innocent, but the actual hacker, then they went on to really utilize this, and they made a big deal out of it. And anyway. So it's a bit scary, it's a bit scary. I wonder though, in the longer term, if this does result in very severe things, because now you can't also say, okay, we've got this, securities in the hand of private companies, but it's no better in the hand of the government, right? It's not an improvement. They get hacked all the time too. So it makes you wonder if some of these systems will get non-electronic.
I don't know. That's really only,
like have a manual backup system. Say, okay, you want to do it, then fine. We'll shut down our electronic. We go to the manual backup. It's going to cost us a bit extra for the short term until we replace this system with a new one. And it's okay, hacker, too bad. All you did is just waste time. So, all right, doesn't help you.
Were you familiar with Stuxnet?
No. Sounds vaguely familiar.
It was, I forget when it was. It was a while back. It was early 2000s, maybe even in the 90s.
Okay.
Hackers got into a nuclear. It was like a uranium enrichment facility.
Oh, wow.
The uranium, and they put it inside centrifuges, and they spin it around really fast.
Yeah.
Someone actually got in, and they increased the actual speed the centrifuges were spinning at.
Wow.
Readouts that the controllers were seeing report normal information. So they were actually destroying all the machinery in the process and causing all kinds of nuclear related problems, and no one knew. Right? All the evidence was everything was fine.
Wow.
I think that's really
very scary, where somebody's just arsing about and doing things like that. Exactly.
Yeah, you can physically harm people. By using the keyboard. That was like the first real example of it.
I've been inside a facility with the centrifuges like that.
Mm-hmm.
Massive, huge facility. I mean, it's like, you talk about like a sci-fi world. It's like this city, and all these pipes and things. It was too fantastic. It was the company's called Richards Bay Minerals, and they would do vanadium, anything that ended in IUM, they would mine there, and they would actually strip mine a beach, and they would have a dredger, and they'd have this pond with a dredger on it. But what made them kind of interesting was that this pond would move and they would take the forest out from the front and then replant it at the back. So there was only always this pond and the thing would just gradually move along the beach. It was pretty cool. But those centrifuges and everything, yeah, was too fantastic. You know, just you can't believe you're in such an environment where you can, I mean, it's the size of a small town. And just pipes and centrifuges and all the stuff. It was too fantastic. It was really cool. It was really awesome. Fun stuff. Yeah. And they explained how it all worked with the different centrifuges, you know, and they would take it and then, you know, once it's gone through one set, they go through another set and they gradually refine it. It's quite a long, involved process, but it was all fully automated pretty much. And very few people necessary, which is very cool to see as well. You know? I mean, the whole dredging thing and all that, you know, it was minimal employees, but this was a long time ago. It's very sophisticated for the time. I mean, that was in the late 70s. You know, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
When I was inside of plants in the Northeast on like, just like the sheer mass of piping and tubing and electrical cables that were tens, hundreds of miles of this stuff.
Exactly.
Somebody planned that out. Somebody laid out every one of these things on a sheet of paper.
Yes. This intrigues that same year. You know, I just look at the bridge and I say, wow, you know, just a simple bridge. What does it take to actually put that bridge into place? Who are these people that are doing this? Or a big skyscraper? Who's designing this? Who's implementing it? Who's putting it into place? I know I am inordinately fascinated at that design engineering of such big complex projects like those factories. I find it fantastic. It's really, really intriguing. You know, somebody out there is thinking big, thinking huge, and that is very encouraging. Now, I also suspect that a lot of it is you do a little bit here and then you get to another little part and then you start aggregating all the smaller parts, and it's not necessarily one person but many, like when the computer games get built, you know, they have a team of developers and they kind of split it up and you do this part, you do that part, and then they just all put it.
Ooh, lost your audio. I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear anything. Can you hear me? What happened here?
Let's see. I thought I'm here, Joe.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. It dropped off for a second. All right. So yeah, I was just, I imagine it's the same with your IT, you know, that you have multiple people putting together things and then it gets added together later. Yeah. It's very exciting. Even so though, what can be done is really, really cool. It's really, really cool. Yeah. I do.
Oh. I lost your voice again.
But it's only with you guys that I really have trouble.
There we go.
Yeah.
Only with us.
So I don't know if it's time or day or just the connection with you guys for some reason. It's very strange.
All right. Did I lose you again?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Let's see. I was going through module 5. I think session 3. It was long.
3 or session 2. Let's see. Module 5, session 1 was critical self-talk. So it'll be session 2 then, no?
Yeah, I think I kind of breezed over session 2 and I started going through session 3, and the slide engaged me more, so I started taking notes on that.
Oh, I see. Okay, because that application, emphasis, and self-proof, that's session 2. So we're on session 3, the value of learning to quote ourselves.
Yes.
So just to emphasize on application, emphasis, and self-proof, I mean, just those 3 concepts alone are absolutely essential for leveraging self-change, not just for leveraging learning, but actual lasting change. That self-proof is the key to that. We got to own it. And through application and emphasis, yes, you change yourself, but the self-proof is that final tie-off that locks it in place for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very key, that self-proof, to say, I can do this. I've proven to myself I can do it. So we're going to own it first, but the self-proof is very key.
Mm-hmm.
So the value of learning to quote ourselves.
All right. Takeaways. I had more takeaways than usual.
Brilliant. I like it. I was telling Erica Jayne that it's very different for me to be doing it in this way, so quickly, so fast, and not going into detail, and that. So it's really unusual for me. So yeah.
All right, let's see. The first thing I wrote down was, once we practice quoting ourselves, we undergo a shift of being. We transform our brains and cells from looking out there to realizing the answers are already in here.
Yes.
I think maybe I kind of gravitated towards session 3 because it was more directly related to, I think last time,
All cool.
like the power of spoken word has always been something that's I believed in. And kind of really hones in on that. So let's see. When we start,
it's a major shift. It's a major shift.
Mm-hmm.
This whole logic of quoting ourselves. A shift in terms of emphasis of authority. When we start feeling the shift that, hey, you know what? I've got some sensibility. I'm not always looking elsewhere. I start looking internally. It's a major shift of our psychology. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't think about, or the average person doesn't think about quoting themselves ever.
Exactly. They never get to that stage in their life, and they always end up being inadvertently subservient to everything else. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not necessarily a negative, but it is in the context of you never getting to live by being a real person. You're always living somebody else's life, somebody else's ideas. And that's a very big deal. That's a huge deal. So you don't have to quote yourself, but you have to regard yourself as being able to come up with some kind of sensibility. Yes?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. When we start to apply what we know is when we really start to learn. Let's see. Quoting ourselves starts a change of mindset where we make ourselves the authority over ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's just taking responsibility for you being you.
Which is an interesting concept, right? Because that's something people probably don't think about much either.
Exactly. Obvious, making it obvious. The simple stuff. In the simple is so profound. But exactly what you said. It's like, wow, well, kind of duh, but it's a huge, big deal. It's huge. I love it, Joe. I love it. Very cool.
Let's see. When we quote ourselves, that simple act makes us responsible for our knowings, our understandings, our awareness, and our application. When we read a quote from another, what happens? They have little impact, regardless of how wonderful they are to us when we read them. Which that one kind of stood out to me, that slide. I think I stayed on that slide for a few minutes just thinking about all the times that you heard someone, they get real excited about like these fads that come along.
Exactly.
I know Kay was huge on, what was that lady's name?
Brené Brown.
What?
No, not Brené Brown. The Does It Bring You Joy?
Oh, Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo. Yeah, she was this cleaning mentality and big on
decluttering your life. Yeah,
decluttering your life. She was really big on that for a while, for a few weeks, and then it just kind of fell off because it was someone's view that sounded great but didn't take hold with her.
Exactly. And then when Kay went back to it and really got into it and started making it her own, then it became real power for her, and she's found a lot of use subsequently from it. It's very cool. Yeah. Good example. Good example.
Yeah, but
And the key is impact when we listen to quotes from others, not realization or, ooh, that's fantastic. Yes, we can have that realization because sometimes people do say fantastic things. Impact, though, in order to get lasting impact, you have to make it your own. And then you're quoting yourself. Not just I agree, but I see how it gets worked out, how it's figured out, how it's calculated. Go ahead, Erica.
The thing for me on this was realizing how impactful doing
It's okay, I can hear.
doing a repeat back and takeaway of what you're reading is, because that's the way to make it your own. I mean, it doesn't mean that what other people are saying is just completely useless, but just hearing what they're saying and going like, oh yeah, that's great, and then moving on, you immediately get the point of what it was. So if you see something that grabs you, when you do a repeat back takeaway, like think of what that really means to you, reformulate it in your own words, turn it into your own quote, do that kind of a thing. That's what really makes it solidify. So it doesn't just have to be that like you have to come up with everything on your own. It's just that
exactly
words and really making the effort to turn it over in your mind, reword it in a way that's really you, and make it really make sense to you, make it apply to you. That process is what
to
really
own it. Yes. You don't have to reinvent it. You just have to own it, which is a whole different logic. So yes, the way I've set up these programs is very sneaky, right? Because that's the key to the whole thing, the takeaways and the repeat backs and the dictionary of power. It's inadvertent learning. Through doing it in this way, especially when we go into it in detail, when we have the time. Now the brain is being shaped by the individual themselves, but without stress, without pressure, without needing to remember everything. It happens automatically. It's very powerful. Very sneaky. I get the person to do the work, not me. I don't want to be teaching you because, again, it's coming from outside. You've got to come from inside. Very simple, but it's very profound.
Let's see. We're easily fooled by our surface mind. Okay, this one was really related to the point above. We're easily fooled by our surface mind. We believe that recognizing and realizing some point of wisdom or insight is enough. We've seen, recognized, and thus we believe, and now we know it, but that's not true at all.
Exactly. That's a huge deal. I put that under memory learning. We think that we learn by memory, and it doesn't really work. Just because you had a realization doesn't mean that you're going to get value out of it. And that point that Erica made about repeat backs, I think this is very useful from a team membership point of view. When you bring a new policy or a new idea, a new concept, whatever, and you say, listen, just give that back to me, or ask them to write it for you, because if you've especially got a big team, one guy gives it and then the others just copy with that. No, write out for me what this is all about in your own words. That's really going to, because it's emphasis also. It's going to really, really connect them to it. And it will give you insight into how much they actually listen. And you don't have to do this all the time, but every now and then they say, oh crap, I might be asked to do a repeat back on this and put it in my own words. So I better pay attention here.
And that's one of the things that I really like is the concept. I mean, very similar, but the concept of like taking something that you've just learned and then being put in a situation where you have to teach someone else about that. Now you are the, quote unquote expert. It's like it gets your mind into thinking about it differently, where you're under some kind of appropriate pressure. Able to explain this, not only understand it yourself, but explain it to someone else in a way that they can understand it. That really forces you to think about it.
Absolutely. It's huge. So, we can leverage this in a team situation where you're like, all right, let's say you got a bunch of different tasks, right? And you assign A to the odd numbered members in the team, and you assign task B to the even numbers. And then you say, look, you got to do both those. So, number one, you explain to two your task, and two, you explain to one your task, right? So now they have to really listen to their task and listen to the other person and make sure they learn it from them. In other words, they have to basically educate each other. So you could leverage that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that we try to do at work is when you go to a conference, if we're going to pay to send you to a conference, when you come back, you whoever else went, you're going to sit in a room with, or if I went to the conference, we're going to sit with my boss and our CIO, and we're all going to do like, give us your takeaways and your repeat backs.
Your recap and take. It's very cool. Very excellent. Yeah.
It helps reinforce it, and also helps make sure they're paying attention while we're at the conference.
Yes. It's a helpful skill to have. Not just repeat back and takeaway, but also recap, summation, which is essentially what the Dictionary of Power is. It's that absolutely super condensed, you got your bullet points of the key elements of what you've extracted out of that. And because of the nature of how we do it, like it's a fractal conception or a cabinet file, each entry into your Dictionary of Power may just be one word, but it's a cabinet file. It can unpack itself. And that's very, very potent when you specifically design your recaps to be cabinet files. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very useful because then you don't need to remember it. It's automatic. And for the other person too, all they're going to do is just think about it a little bit. Okay, 1 leads to 2, and all right. And the whole thing unravels and unfolds. Very cool. Very, very cool. Very helpful.
Yeah. Very cool. We learn from others, but if we do not make the wisdom our own, it of course can never be ours, and will not make much difference in our lives.
Exactly.
So, pretty similar there. We can't just go around quoting ourselves and thinking that whatever we say is good and sensible. That's the narcissist way, not ours.
Why, exactly.
I thought of a couple of people when I read that one.
Yes.
But it's kind of you got to find the right balance. It's
exactly.
You have to quote it to yourself, but you can't always. You've got to listen to that quote and evaluate it.
Exactly.
To make sure you really believe it.
Exactly. And know what stands behind it. You've thought it through. You figured it out. You can, it's not like in a math thing. You're not just giving the people the answer. You're giving them how you came to that answer. Or you may just give the answer, but if they ask, well, how did you get there? You can say, okay, well, here's the long form and here's how I did it. And you can go through all the steps. That's what really makes it our own. That's what gives it power. Yeah.
And running it through your impeccability and ethics,
exactly.
And, morals and all of that part of your evaluation to make sure, hey, is this might make sense, but is it really impeccable? Is this something that
exactly. It may make sense, but can I sign off of it on it as an impeccable person, as a sentient being, as a compassionate being, as a sensible person, with my sobriety? Can I balance that? My integrity? Yes. So that makes all the difference, because many things are sensible, but when you kind of, when you really get down to it, it's like, no, sorry. Yeah. It gives depth, in other words, this added element where you're saying, just because I said it doesn't make it valuable. It's got to be real. It's got to be substantiated, validated. I got to be able to sign off with it with a clear conscience. Very critical. So yes, the application of impeccability to such critical. Thank you, Erica. Yes.
And one thing I was thinking about going through this section was actually around Kay and her experience, because like as in school, early on, right? You do exactly what we're saying you shouldn't do. You listen to someone and you take that as truth.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a certain developmental age or something where you start to transition to, okay, you said this, you're an authority figure, but I'm still going to evaluate, do I believe it?
Right.
I wonder, her opinion, like where is that age in the development of a child?
She has talked about that and about structuring things in the classroom so that children are encouraged to ask questions. And like one of the things we've talked about is something that's a big part of the artistry of teaching is, as a teacher, being in tune with each of your kids in terms of where they're at in their understanding, how best they learn. And, if you see someone who is maybe trying to make sense of something, but they're struggling with it, then as a teacher, it's your responsibility to say it, to present it in a different way so that they can grasp it. I think a lot of that, once a big part of really early development, really, really early, there isn't any evaluation happening, right? You're just parroting, copying, you're, seeing what someone else is doing. And to your point, you're just taking everything at face value. But when you start transitioning to, okay, now that I have a serious grasp of this and I understand, then, how do you work that in so that a child feels comfortable questioning and questions appropriately? And I think for a lot of the time that Mom was teaching, she taught young enough that wasn't a huge part of her experience. She was mostly in the, parroting kind of phase. But that's something that to me is a really important part of the teaching process. And I think really good teachers encourage their kids to ask questions. Not like, well, just because I said so you just need to. And I brought this up when I was going through the program, when I was talking about making sense of things and doing the whole based on what discussion, okay, so you have some, well, okay, based on what? Well, okay, now you break it down a little bit more. Okay, based on what? And that eventually, like in math, you can have something like calculus that's really complicated, high level, and you break it all the way down to the really basic principles of, you can get all the way down to, well, okay, 2 + 2 = 4. Based on what? Well, 2 and 2. And what you really get down to, it is trust. It's like sort of like a communal agreement of understanding.
Common agreement.
That this equals 1. Like 1, 2, 3, those are abstract concepts, right? It doesn't equal something real. So we have to all come to a communal agreement and understanding that this means 1, this is 2. There is you can't go any further than that, right? Based on what? Well, just because that's what it is. Like
assigned value,
right.
If you really want to name it.
All agree.
Assigned value.
That this equals this. And once you have that really basic sort of baseline established, then you build up and you can start, going. But there is a point that you reach, and it's usually the fundamental early on stuff where, when you ask why or based on what, it's, well, just,
it's based on some sort of trust or belief, which is the same thing. Very cool, Erica. Very cool. Very cool. And that's important when we get to things that are less mathematically inclined. And we start to pay attention to our belief systems, which is where the quoting comes in. We want to go down to that root paradigm that it's based on and say, what is that based on? What belief, what trust am I assuming is the root paradigm here? And that's very important because your whole house of cards is based on that.
I remember a long time
Very useful. Very useful.
Specific example. My brother's 5 years older than me, and I was in middle school. He might have been he was probably in high school. He might have been 9th or 10th grade or something. And I remember finding like an assignment of his or a test of his, and the test was explain the value of money.
The value of money.
Yeah, explain the value of money. And everyone in the class, the U.S. government says blah, blah, blah is worth blah, blah, blah. A dollar's worth 100 pennies, and that's based on X, Y, and Z. And he actually went a different way. Maybe it's more insightful than what I, realized at the time. But he wrote this, 500-word essay on money's based on trust. $1 is worth $1.
Right.
Yes.
Not based on
assigned value.
It's based on trust.
And this is, Mom has made this really big deal. And this is actually one of the reasons that she argues so much against the use of
like the heavy use of technology in really early education, because she is an early education expert. That is her bread and butter. And she's always talking about how concepts like money, like 1, 2, 3, ABC, all these things, the really foundational things, which are completely trust based, those are abstract concepts, right? And when you're trying to teach someone an abstract concept like that, and it is based on trust, and you're trying to get them established, basically you're trying to establish for them, there's a reason you should trust this, right? Mm-hmm. Like, don't just trust this because I'm telling you, like, I'm going to show you something. She's always talking about concrete learning. And when you're teaching an abstract concept and you're teaching it to a young person, or really anybody for the first time, it's critical that you have a concrete element for them to grasp onto, because mm-hmm. that's a big part of the trust building. I think, when you're teaching a child how to count, and you take Skittles and you say, this is 1, this is 2, mm-hmm. This is 3. That's helping establish this trust of, okay, I trust you that this is 3 because I can see these little things right here in front of me, and okay, this is, and that when you're doing this through technology instead of hands-on learning, technology is not concrete, even when it's, 1 Skittle on the screen or whatever. It's mm-hmm. not like part of learning is, and I think to me, a part of trust is, we talked a ton about this when we were going through the trust module, that thinking that trust was like this blind faith, that it was like, well, you just have to take it on authority that this is the way it is and whatever. And that's not true. A big part of trust is like proving to yourself why you should trust that this is the case.
Yes.
Why would you trust if you have no evidence to tell you that you should? And that's a big part mm-hmm. of this part of learning is, I can trust that 3 equals 3 because I can touch this and go, okay, this is real. This is something that's right in front of me. And this makes sense because I can see when I have 3 and I take this away. Yeah. Now
it becomes self-evident.
Right. And that's a big part of learning, and a big part of trust in weaving these base concepts is having something that you can actually see, feel, touch, whatever that is. Concepts.
Very powerful, Erica, very powerful. Mm-hmm. And that's self-evidentness. That's, self-evident sensibility. When we find those and focus on those and use that as your foundation, now you've skipped a couple of steps, especially in the trust thing. And you don't have to rely on beliefs and things like this. It's very, very, very powerful. Very huge. Very cool. Very cool.
All right, let's see. I have 2 takeaways left. Good quotes are, most importantly, usually self-evident. Right? It's like you say, make it obvious. It should be obvious.
Exactly.
And expressions of the moment are not statements which contain any commitment. It's just how we're feeling at present.
Yeah.
I think most people, or a lot of people, interpret their expressions at the moment as a quote.
Correct. Which not necessarily. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So then the exercises, or the exercise, take a few points you've written and transform them into quotes, which was a little bit difficult. So you guys will have to give me some feedback on. I really wish I could have seen your examples of this.
Yeah.
So the first one I wrote down 3. Quoting someone else equals knowing. Quoting myself equals believing.
Ooh, I like that.
Say that again, Joe.
Quoting someone else equals knowing. Quoting myself equals believing.
Is that the other way around? Hang on, let me hear it again.
Quoting someone else equals knowing. Quoting yourself equals believing.
I think
so. Believing what you know.
I think he's going with knowing little k.
Okay. Yeah, because you can flip that around. and saying, okay, I'm just believing you. But when I quote myself, because I've thought it through and I figured it out, now I know it for real. So it can go either way. It depends on how you define know and belief. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And that's a big deal. When it comes to this, and like this whole foundation of based on what? How do we define things? How do we assign value? This is very important, our definitions. Yeah. It's very useful. Because in this case, like I said, you could just flip it around and it still can make sense, depending on how you define belief and knowing, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely cool. All right, the second one, quoting myself is a great bullshit filter.
I love that. I love that. I love that. That's very cool. That's very cool.
If I'm quoting something and it's not obviously correct, it's probably bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great, because now you're putting yourself on the line.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a great filter. Yes, I like that. Yeah.
All right, and the last one I wrote down was recognizing wisdom is not the same as applying it.
Yes. Very simple, very obvious, but very profound. Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with recognizing wisdom. That's a great thing, but
exactly.
That's
right. It's not the same.
That's not the end.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something you believe is worthy of changing yourself, then you have to apply it. You can't just say it.
I love that. I love that. That's very cool. And then that's kind of so fundamental to everything that we are doing here. It's all about the application. We can recognize the wisdom, but unless you apply it, it means nothing. So
Right.
Very cool, Joe. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very nicely expressed too, because that's the thing with the quote. It's not only about expressing some sort of self-evident truth, but also to do so in a way that's memorable, that sticks, that's artistic, that's poetic, that's cogent, that's potent, that has a saliency to it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I want that to hold us. I want to grab your mind with it. Yeah. So the way you said, say it again about the wisdom one, please.
Recognizing wisdom is not the same as applying it.
Exactly. So simple. So simple.
Yeah, it's really good. This is
really
so
huge. Really huge. Really huge.
So interesting to go through these sessions with someone else.
Yes.
After you've already done it yourself, because I remember doing this session and having, specific takeaways and thoughts from it. And
they're like totally different from mine.
It's really like the things that came up in the discussion from your takeaways on this session. For me, I don't remember if there was really there probably was a specific session where this happened, but like for me, what this is reminding me of is my fractal conceptions list, where I started, what we were talking about getting to the real root of all of your beliefs and, really like doing the repeat backs and takeaways, taking some piece of wisdom, rewording it, breaking it down, asking based on what, getting to the real root belief that allows for this to be true and makes sense to you.
Yes.
That whole process is a huge core fundamental part of Way of Impeccability to me. Like that's a big point of that, is to get you started thinking in that way and questioning your beliefs, questioning what you're hearing, what you're taking, what maybe you've previously just taken on authority to be true. And it's just really interesting that I don't specifically remember that being a particular takeaway from me from this session. It certainly was from the program in general, but I think it's really fascinating what different people pull out of these different sessions. It's super interesting.
Very cool.
And
not any offhand, and I have a quotes file on my phone that I have some quotes of my own and some quotes of other people's. I don't remember. Let's see. Boy, it's been a while since I've added to my web impeccability file because it's been a while since I finished it.
Yeah, yeah, we're doing all sorts of other fun things. Yeah.
Where is it? Nope, that's more in this project. There we go. What are we on?
5-3. 5-3.
Okay. 4, 1. Oops, okay. Where's 5-3?
Not slide 3. Sorry, session 3.
Yeah,
Module 5, session 3.
I have module 5, session 1, and then I have a whole bunch of notes, and then it skips to session 6.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
okay. I can't help you there.
I may have stuck them in
That's okay.
quotes file. Oh, here we go.
Look at
Self
it.
quotes. Maybe I started this.
Oh,
Yeah,
give me a couple.
let's see. These are like all about trust. If you're believing little b without trusting capital T, you're not really believing capital B. If you're believing without trusting, you're not really believing. Self-trust.
Yeah. If you believe in without trusting, it's not really believing. Exactly.
Self-trust is a mutual collaboration and agreement between past, current, and future self. And the foundation of self-trust is a belief in one's own goodness, impeccability, appropriateness, intent, and ability to see things through to the end. Yeah, I didn't remember I had a self quotes file. I should have been putting my self quotes in there. I've been sticking them in my other quotes file.
Interesting.
Yeah. The fractal conceptions, I really like the fractal conceptions list. Like when you get to the root of some belief, like for me, one of the things that made it onto my list of fractal conceptions was I realized that I no longer believe in like evil or bad or like Satan or, you know, whatever you want, whatever descriptor you want to use. I don't believe in some evil force out there that's like wreaking havoc. I have changed, you know, now that I've thought that through, I've changed that belief to everything being tied to goodness in some way. Universal right and wrong was another fractal conception for me. That's been a really...
Yeah, those fractal conceptions are in essence quotes for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right, cool. All right, cool. All right, cool.
I might want to read through those someday.
For sure.
All right. Well, it is 1 o'clock and right on time. People are starting to message me.
Nice.
I hear that. I hear that. Perfect. All right. So very cool. Very cool. Erica, I want to show you something. Just after Joe's gone.
Oh, okay. I'll have to get on.
Just, 1 minute. It'll be quick. It'll be quick.
We're on Joe's computer.
She's
so
on.
I've got
it's on my computer.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll show her next time then. Okay. I'll just put your quote in, but I just want to put your name in. So we'll have to do some brainstorming over here.
Okay.
All right. We'll play with it next time.
Okay.
Erica knows what I'm talking about. But I have a surprise for you next time. That's what I'm saying. Brilliant.
Thank you, man.
Bye-bye. Yes. Always a pleasure. And a joy. Bye-bye.